Hello, today's lesson will be on multiplying with decimals, and we will be covering pages 79 to 85. And after this video, you will be able to multiply a whole number and a decimal, multiply a decimal and another decimal, use the multiplication shortcut to multiply a decimal by 10, 100, or 1000, use front-end rounding to estimate decimal products, and finally to use multiplication with decimals to solve word problems. So we will get started here. Okay, so here's your packet, the multiplying decimals packet, and I'm just going to work some problems through. So let's start, and we're going to do the first one in each row here. So let's circle those. I'd like to do these first three. And we're going to make some white space here. We have some writing space. So when you're multiplying decimals, you have to have the decimal or the number with more digits on the top. So as you can see, 3.8 and 4. 4 is actually the larger number, but we're going to put it on the bottom because there's only one digit. So 3.8 times 4. And what's different with multiplying decimals from adding and subtracting is you do not line up your decimal points. You pretend like they're not there until the actual end of the problem when you have the answer, and then you put your decimal back into the problem, into the answer. So 4 times 8 is 32. We put down the 2 and we carry the 3. 3 times 4 is 12 plus 3 more, 15. So now is where we decide where to put our decimal. So if I look, I have a decimal right here in this number only. So how many numbers do I have after my decimal? Well, I have an 8, right? So I have one number after my decimal. So that means I'm going to start my decimal in my answer right here, and I'm going to move 1 over to the left. So my final answer then would be 15.2. 15.2. The next one is 41. Let me just start that one over here. 41 times 0.03. Now I'm going to drop the 0 in front of the 0.03 because that just gets more confusing when you're multiplying. And that is an unnecessary 0. So I can pretty much just kind of cross that 0 out, even though I crossed out too much. So yeah, you can just cross out that 0, that first one. So let's multiply. So we have 3 times 1 is 3. And we have 3 times 4 is 12. And then I know that the next row, the 0 times 1 is going to be 0. And the 0 times 4 is going to be 0 again. So I could have just eliminated doing the 0 because I'm going to get a row of zeros anyways. But just so for the purpose of seeing what you're doing, I put there. So 3 plus nothing is 3. 2 plus 0 is 2. And 1 plus 0 is 1. Now I have to figure out where my decimal goes. Well, if I look back up at this right here, I have 2 numbers after the decimal. So when I go down to my answer, the decimal starts at the end. I'm going to go 2 places over so that I end up with 2 numbers after my decimal. So the true answer then would be 1.23. So we're going to put 1.23 over here. And then we'll do number 3. So let's see, I might end up erasing all my white stuff when I do this. I did. So we'll put it back. Let's just erase all this. And we'll put a little white screen again for writing. Okay, we have 34.7 times 34.7 times 8. Okay, and then we're going to multiply. So we have 7 times 8 is 56. We put down the 6. And we carry the 5. And we have 4 times 8 is 32 plus 5, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. Put down the 7, carry the 3. 3 times 8 is 24 plus 3 more, 27. Now we look and see how many numbers we have after the decimal. In our case, we only have the 7 after the decimal, so 1 place. So we start our decimal at the end of the answer, and we move 1 place. So the answer to that one is 277 and 6/10. 277 and 6/10, or 0.6. So that's how you multiply a decimal by a whole number. Okay, let's clear our screen and move on to the next page. So now we are going to be multiplying a decimal by a decimal. So let's look at the first couple in row 6, 7, and 8. Let's go to rows. Well, let's do 6 and 7 since that's appearing on our screen at the moment. And we can blank out our screen so we have a little more writing space. So now when you're multiplying 2 decimals, you're going to have to consider where to put the decimal in the answer at the end. So we have 0.09, and again, I'm going to drop that first 0 and just put 0.09 times, and I'm going to drop the first 0 in 0.6 as well and just do 0.6, like that. So now when I do this, I have 6 times 9 is 54. I put down the 4 and I carry the 5. 6 times 0 is 0 plus 5 is 5. Be careful on that one. A lot of people make the mistake on these kind of problems of saying 6 times 0 is 6 and then they add 5. So no, 0 times 6 is 0 and then add 5. So it's just going to be 5. Now I have to count how many numbers after the decimal that I have. So right here, I have 2 numbers after the decimal. And down here, I have 1 number after the decimal. So altogether, I need to have 3 spots after the decimal. So my decimal is going to start here in my answer, and I have to jump 3 spots. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to put my decimal here, and I have to fill in my blank space with a 0. So my final answer then is 0.054, and a couple videos ago you would be able to read that number as 54,000. Okay, let's try number 7. We have 5.6 times 5.6 times 0.2. Again, I'm dropping the 0 in front of the 0.2. And I get 2 times 6 is 12. Carry the 1. 2 times 5 is 10 plus 1, 11. And then I got to see how many places after the decimal I need. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say, okay, that's 1 place after the decimal. And this is also 1 place after the decimal. So that's a total of 1 plus 1 more, or 2 places. So I start my decimal here at the answer and I jump 2 places to the left. And my answer then is 1.12. So we're going to put that in over here. 1 1200. So that's how you multiply a decimal times a decimal. Let's move on a little bit here. When you see them written like this, this means to multiply. So, for instance, number 12, there's no multiplication sign between them, but the parentheses next to each other means to multiply the 2 numbers together. So we can go ahead and do that one. Let's give that one a try. So we have 0.81 times 0.69. Again, I'm dropping the 0 in front of the number. 81 and 0.69. And then I multiply. So we'd take the 9 and multiply it times the 1. 9 times 1 is 9. 9 times 8 is 72. Now be careful on the second one, we start with the 6. We got to multiply it by the 1, but we have to start our answer under the 6. So 6 times 1 is 6. And a lot of people like to put, it's supposed to be a 6. A lot of people like to put a 0 here to hold their place, but you don't have to if you know to remember to put it underneath the 6, the number you're multiplying by now. And then 6 times 8 is 48. So hopefully you can tell that's a 6 there. It's kind of a messy 6. So we get 9 plus nothing is 9. We get 6 plus 2 is 8. We get 7 plus 8 is 15. Carry the 1. 4 plus 1 is 5. Now we have to decide where to put our decimal. Let's go back and look at our two numbers. There is 2 numbers after the decimal here. There is 2 numbers after the decimal here. 2 plus 2 is 4, so we need to go 4 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4 spots. So we're going to put the answer of 0.558 and 9. I can get that 9 in there. So it's the same thing. It's just using parentheses, and that means multiplication as well. Okay, let's clear our drawings. Let's move on from here. Let's go on to our shortcut method of multiplying decimals by a 10, a 100, or a 1000. So if we go down here, the first row is multiplying by 10, the second row is multiplying by 100s, and the third row is multiplying by 1000s. And just to show you what you're doing, the first one is 0.8, and I'm going to show you the long way first, and then I'm going to show you the shortcut way. And I'm going to put the 10 above because 10 has more digits than the 0.8, right? And now 10 times 0.8, 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 1 is 8. I have one number after the decimal, so I'm going to move over 1, and it's going to become 8.0. Now, or just 8. You can drop the 0.0 part. So let's take a look at the shortcut. So when you're multiplying any number, any decimal by 10, you're just moving your decimal one number to the right. So it was 0.8. So because the 10 has 1 0 in it, I'm going to move my decimal one spot to the right. So that's where I get my 8 from. If I was to look at 100, I'm going to take 0.03, and because there's 2 zeros in 100, I'm going to move my decimal 2 spots to the right. So 1, 2. Now if I move it 2 to the right, I've got an answer of 0.3. So I'm just going to drop the 0 in front of the 3 and just write 3. Now when I multiply by 1000, I have to move the decimal, how many places do you think? 3, right, because there's 3 zeros. So we have 0.9, and we're going to move 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3. Now don't get tricked on this one. We have to fill in our empty spots with zeros. So we now have an answer of 900. 900. So that's a nice shortcut. If I was to multiply it out like I did up here, and I was to multiply 0.9 times 1000, I would get 900. This is just a nice shortcut to use. And you can always do that with 10, 100, and 1000. When you're dividing by 10, 100, or 1000, it works the same way, except you're going to move your decimal to the left instead of the right. You're going to decrease the size. So let's look on the next one here. When you're rounding with front-end estimation, you're going to go to the number that is the nearest unit. So in our case here, this 2.84, we're going to round to the 2, and we're going to round this 0.72 to the 7 and go to the nearest unit. So let's give that a try. What they want you to do on this part is to use front-end estimation first and then use a calculator to find the exact answer. Well, we're not going to do the calculator part because you can do that part at home. but we are going to show you how to use estimation. So let's put a little white space. So 4.7 times 0.3, and we're going to times it together. Okay, so first we're going to estimate. I'm not going to actually get the real answer at this moment. So we're going to round to the 4 because that is closest to front end, right? So 5, that's the front end. Because why did I go up to 5? Because I look at the 7 and I say if it's 5 or more, I'm going to increase the number to the left of it by 1. So that's where I got the 5. Now I look at 0.3 and I'm going to round to 0.3. So I got to look at the number next to 0.3 and it's nothing, right? So I'm going to keep it as a 0.3. And then I'm going to multiply the estimate together and I'm going to get 5 times 3 is 15. And I have one number after the decimal right here. Oops, trying to draw that. So it's going to end up being 1.5 of my estimated answer. And then you're going to have to use your calculator to get the actual answer. Let's try one more like that as well. So let's clear this, clear my drawings. Okay, let's try number 2. Let's make another box here. And we will try number 2 right here. And we're going to use front end estimation. So let's write our number 7.9 times 0.06. And I'm going to drop again the 0 in the front. And I'm going to use my front end estimation. So 7.8, we're going to round to the 7. So we're going to look at the number next to it on the right. If it's 5 or more, we're going to round up. So we're going to round that up to 8. And then we have 0.06. So now we're going to round to the 0. So we look next door here to the right. If it's 5 or more, we round up. So we're going to round the 0 up to 0.1. And now we're going to multiply 8 times 0.1, which is going to be 8. And we have one number after the decimal. So we're going to end up with 0.8. So our estimate on that one is 0.8. So that's how you use front end estimation. Let's go to using our skills now to use it in word problems. So let's try number 3 here. So let's circle that one. 1 mile is equal to 1.6 kilometers. Miriam drives 25 miles to get to her job. What is the distance to her job in kilometers or kilometers, however you want to say that? So she drives 25 miles. And every mile is 1.6 kilometers. So let's multiply. 5 times 6 is 30. Carry the 3. 2 times 6 is 12 plus 3, 15. And then we have 1 times 5 is 5. Make sure you put it under the 1. And 1 times 2 is 2. And then you add, and you get 0. You get 10, carry the 1, 2, 3, 4, you get 4. Then you look and see how many numbers after the decimal. Well, there's only 1, right? So you move 1 over this way. So 40.0, or what is the distance to her job in kilometers? It's 40 km. 40 km. There we go. Okay, we'll try one more. Let's look at, let's clear some of these. Let's scroll down toward the end. Number 18. Sometimes you have to do a couple of operations on a word problem, so you have to kind of sort through it to make sure you know what it's asking you. On Carmen's last phone bill, she had 23 minutes of calls. I'm going to underline 23 minutes of calls, and it costed her 0.129 cents per minute, and 64 minutes of calls at 14 cents per minute. What was the total charge of these calls. And then it says to round your answer to the nearest cent. Okay, so we're going to do this. So we have a couple of things to do. The first one is we're going to multiply 0.129. Now notice how I'm putting the number with more digits on top by 23 minutes. And we're going to times those together. And we're going to get 3 times 9 is 27. Down the 7, carry the 2. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 more is 8. And then 3 times 1 is 3. Then we have 2 times 9 is 18. Carry the 1. Cross that off and put the 1 there now. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Be careful that I'm lining up my numbers as best I can here. And 2 times 1 is 2. Then I add those together, and I get 7. 8 and 8 is 16. Carry the 1. 8 and 1 is 9. And then 2. And how many numbers after the decimal do I need? 3. So 1, 2, 3. So the first phone bill was 2.967. I'm going to just kind of write that over here in red because we got a couple of steps to do for this, right? 2.967. Now I need to do one more figuring over on the right side, and that's going to be for my 64 minutes times 0.14. So I can put the 0.14 here and my 64 minutes below it. Wouldn't matter if I did it the other way either. The same number of digits, right? And 4 times 4 is 16. Carry the 1. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 4 times 6 is 24. Put down the 4 under the 6. Cross that off and carry my 2. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. And I add it all up together. And I get 6. And I get 9. And I get 8. And how many numbers after the decimal? 0.14, so 2 numbers, so 8.96. So we're going to put that up here. 8.96. Now, why did I line up my decimals this time? Well, because I need to know my total charge, right? So when I'm totaling that, I have to be adding the two answers together. And when I add, I line up my decimals. That was the previous video. So 7 plus nothing is 7. 6 plus 6 is 12. Carry the 1. 9 plus 9, 18 plus 1 is 19. Carry the 1. 8 plus 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. Make sure my decimal stays in the right spot here for adding. And now my final step, I have 11.927, and I have to round to the nearest cent. So the nearest cent is going to be the 2. So I have to look at the next door number, and if it's 5 or more, I'm going to round the 2 up to a 3, right? So my final answer is, what was the total charge? Well, money-wise, it was $11.93 when we round. So that is the total answer. So let us clear and go back to our objectives and see if we've met them. So can you now multiply a whole number by a decimal? Are you able to multiply a decimal by a decimal? Are you able to use the shortcut method with 10, 100, and 1000? Are you able to estimate and round decimals? And are you able to use the multiplication of decimals in word problems? So if you need any extra help, go back and review some of these, as well as completing the practice questions in the packet. So I hope that you have a good day, and I will see you next time. Bye.